It is Crosstown Shootout week, which is one of my favorite weeks of the year. Xavier is coming off of 3 straight losses at home, including bye games to Oakland and most recently Delaware on Tuesday night. Cincinnati is 7-0, but its biggest win right now, according to KenPom, is over UIC, which is ranked 125 in KenPom. Xavier hovering somewhere like at 40 or 50 right now as we record this podcast. Skinny, we'll start with this. What should the line be on this game? I've been going back and forth. I've been asking people. I recorded a UC-centric podcast with Chuck Walter a couple nights ago, and Xavier was favored by 1. I looked this morning as Paul Fritzner and I were doing our Xavier podcast, and UC is now favored by 1. Where would you set the line for this game, or where do you think it will be set?
I'd set it at UC -4, and this is somebody who still is not overly high on this UC team yet. Xavier just doesn't guard, and maybe they find some magic because it's a rivalry game, and maybe I'm setting it too high in a rivalry game. Maybe 1 is probably closer to it. But to me right now,
I mean, if Vegas did Xavier by 4 at home, don't you think the entire betting public would just bet on the home dog in that case in a game like this?
Yeah, and sometimes, you know what, Vegas likes to bet too, believe it or not. And maybe that's what they're looking for, is to rope you in again on a team that just doesn't guard anybody. Again, UC has not even been close to tested, to your point. I mean, their best win over UIC for a while, I think their best net win, and we can do these metrics however we want, their best net win was over a winless Eastern Washington team for a while. I know those that cover them and are around them and see them really like what they see. I'm going to withhold judgment till they really play somebody. I mean, I'll be frank, this win for UC would be good. I don't think it would be great. A loss to me would go, okay, now you lost to this team. I know it was on their floor, but listen, this Xavier team, I'm not sure you're going to find a team in the Big 12 on the road that's worse than this Xavier team at the moment. Do you?
Not right now. Not with the way Xavier's playing right now. I mean, like you said, their inability to guard and then their just lack of toughness, both from a physical standpoint, getting guys scoring right through their chest, just driving right through them and finishing through them, and also from a mental standpoint of when things get hard and they face some adversity. I mean, they just folded down the stretch against Delaware. I mean, Sean Miller said, he's like, I've been in a lot of games where it feels
Delaware.
Yeah, he said, I've been in a lot of games where it feels like it's gotten away from my team and, it's a tough loss. He's like, but this one felt different. It felt like our guys kind of just quit.
And that's the thing. I mean, if Sean Miller was in his first or second year, you'd scratch your head and go, man, this guy didn't know what he's doing. One of the things about Sean Miller teams is they're tough. I mean, they're tough. And that'll tell you, because he's preaching it, he's drilling it, and they just aren't getting it. And that becomes unfixable, to be quite frank.
And that's the concern I have when you watch the Oakland game, and then especially now after the Delaware game where it's happened twice in a matter of 2 weeks. Well, I mean, the Delaware game is like, there's no excuse. It's not, you can't be like, they were looking ahead to the shootout. They're coming off of back-to-back home losses, including a bye game home loss. There's no chance it's like a situation where they were looking past this game and weren't ready to play it. I start wondering, is it in there? I mean, part of the problem is I don't think they have enough talent. So talent-wise, they don't have enough to overwhelm these mid-major teams when they start struggling against them. They don't have that ability to get back and make a big run. And then the other thing is, like you said, is it in there? If you're letting guys drive right through you and score chest-to-chest layups against you, at some point it's a pride thing. I just don't know. I mean, these guys don't believe they belong out there if you're letting that happen. And you're right. That's a tough thing to fix. Skinny, as it relates to this year's game between Cincinnati and Xavier, who do you see being the MVP of this game? Who's going to be the standout here?
I'm going to go, believe it or not, I'm going to go Victor Locken, because I just don't know how. Listen, I don't know how they guard him. I honestly don't know how they guard him. And I'm not a huge fan of his, to be quite frank, but I don't know how they guard him.
I'm with you on that, especially with the way he's been playing. He's obviously shooting the ball well from 3. I don't know how much of a factor that is in this game, but Victor is skilled, and he doesn't necessarily like to post you up as much inside. He really likes to kind of catch facing the basket and drive you in and use his skill a little bit more. And when you watch what Trey Townsend did for Oakland and Jair Davis from Delaware, their forward who scored 19 points, that's exactly how they scored against Xavier's front court, which is driving right through them and using some athleticism and size to finish. I mean, it feels like this could be a huge game for Victor Locken. If I'm Xavier, I'm coming up with some type of, I don't know if it's a double team or what, but you're trying to get the ball out of his hands as much as possible, because I don't know if one-on-one you can guard him.
And I like to say you can go at him because he does foul. He's extremely foul prone. Go at him and attack him and get him in foul trouble and get him off the floor. Who does that for Xavier? Nobody.
No way. I mean, and that's the thing. Like Desmond Claude, you're hoping he'd be their go-to scorer coming into this year, and he's shown some flashes. He's clearly one of their best players, but as a consistent go-to option, he hasn't blossomed into that yet. He's not quite ready, and his inability to make any outside shots right now. I mean, he's clanking some really ugly-looking three-point shots. It really is allowing defenses to constrict what they're doing, cut off driving lanes, and make it tougher for him to get into the lane and make plays. And so he's been, I wouldn't say rendered useless, but certainly his effectiveness has been diminished because of the way teams are able to guard him and the fact that he's not getting a lot of help from other places. So, yeah, I mean, that might have been the guy I would have pointed to originally had you asked me at the beginning of the season. But at this point, I don't even know that he has a big advantage against UC, especially when UC has a defensive stopper in John Newman that they can put on him at that same position.
Yeah, I think it's a tough matchup for UC. Again, the only thing that I think the saving grace is atmosphere, rivals on Xavier's home court. And you would say that matters until they get beat by Oakland and Delaware. Again, the intensity level has to be ratcheted up. You can imagine it's going to be ratcheted up just because of it. I think that's the only saving grace for Xavier or those things. But when you put up, matchup versus matchup, talent level versus talent level, and at the moment, ability to do things, that's why I get UC. To me, they're a 4-point favorite in this game.
Yeah. And I mean, the one you mentioned saving grace for Xavier, I agree with that. And the one thing you do have to point to is the Houston game, that performance, that's enough to be in the shootout. I mean, you can win the shootout with the way you played against Houston. I think that Houston was the top team in the country by KenPom. They're ranked number 6 overall in the AP poll. The effort level Xavier showed and the defense they showed in that game, coming out of the final 4-minute media timeout, they were in that game. I think they might even had a lead at that point. So that performance feels like enough to, at least if you're a Xavier fan and you're looking for some hope, you're looking for something to cling to, you say, if they play like that, which was just within the last week, they'll be in this game and have a chance to win it in the end. And I think that's probably what you're hoping for right now. Skinny, the other thing I wonder about is, we talk so much about the atmosphere and the environment of this rivalry game, but when you look at Xavier's roster, it's like, okay, yeah, Desmond Claude has seen the game before last year one time. He played in it a little bit. But aside from him, I mean, who else even has an inkling of what they're going to see in this game? Davion McKnight, because he was at Western Kentucky and regional, and he maybe heard about it enough. Other than him, does anybody else on this team even know what they're about to see?
Is there a deep walk-on I'm missing that might know? At least know?
Yeah. The walk-ons have been here for a few years, so the walk-ons will know. But I'm not sure if like Sasha Shani over, or Gitas in Lithuania was getting a lot of updates on the Crosstown Shootout each year.
No, that's a great point because I do think a lot of times when you've had guys that have been through it, it does matter to them because they've played each other in the summertime, all those things. They've played in that game before. They know the stakes and they know what the stakes are for the city. So to your point, you're right. If you don't have a lot of guys that know what it's all about, it maybe doesn't matter to them as much as we think it should.
Yeah. I mean, I just, when I look at the matchups, it's like I see a scenario and Victor Locken could give Xavier a lot of trouble. I think Dan Skillings could be a matchup problem for Xavier. I think even at the guard position with Day Thomas and Jizzle James and their toughness and athleticism with what we just saw Xavier do against Delaware, where they gave up, 27 points or whatever to a combo guard. Those guys would concern me as well. On the Xavier side, it's like, we mentioned Desmond Claude. It's like, I guess you hope Desmond Claude and Quincy Oliveri both play their best game. And maybe Trey Green comes off the bench and pops some threes for you or something to give you a little bit of a lift. I don't even it's hard for me to even figure out what the path for Xavier is. For UC, it feels like there are multiple paths to victory here.
Agreed. And that's why, again, I think they're the fair. That's why to me, for UC, it's a needed win because I think it would be a bad loss to be quite frank. Not in a term of awful, but again, you don't have much on your non-conference resume. This gives you at least a little something. And if not, you come out of this non-conference with a resume that doesn't tell you anything. And that includes, listen, I know Georgia Tech beat Duke. That's a one-off to me that happens. It's just not going to be a very good non-conference resume.
Yeah. Do you think that this is a huge game for Wes Miller in terms of how he's going to be viewed by the fan base and his sort of tenure here at UC, or is that being overblown by the Xavier side of things?
No, I think it doesn't completely define it because the book's still open to be written. But you know, this is one where you are the better team. You are clearly the better team. And you have to do something in the non-conference to show something before you go into the Big 12, which is going to be I'm just warning everybody, it's a gauntlet. You better strap it on. I mean, that league is just an absolute nightmare, and it becomes cumulative, just like it kind of did in football. So be ready for that. And, so what you have to do in the non-conference is the few opportunities you're going to get to do something for a quad 1 or quad 2, and probably won't even be any quad 1s when all is said and done. You better go get it.
Yeah, Skinny. One other thing. Do you want to make a prediction on the shootout, or you just want to stay with your -4?
No, I'll make, that's the line I would set. I'll go UC 78-70.
Okay, so UC by 8 is Skinny's pick.